the end of our 11th week. How incredibly cool is that? And it just happens to coincide with Juneteenth. A whole bunch of stuff going on around the country, around the world, all of which needs to be commented on or looked at or discussed. Our theme for today is race and racism. You don't have to talk about it if I pin a question at you, but I'm just curious to get people's feelings and see if there's any kind of lovely median area where we all exist. So let's begin.
Okay, we're going to start with Dave Christensen. He actually has a topical DS9 question for you.
Ooh, gosh, brilliant.
So the thing I wanted to bring up, actually the specific episode past tense, you were prominently figured in that episode, because that episode specifically talked about poverty, but the overall theme, like the similarities between what happened in that episode and what's going on right now are eerily similar. And if I remember correctly from looking at some of the trivia stuff on Memory Alpha, at that time, I don't remember which city it was, there was something going on about sanctuary districts, and that came up as a result of the episode and ended up not happening. But
Deep Space Nine started, we started filming, I think it was August 92. The now infamous Rodney King riots happened probably the first time on film, a sort of brutal event. There was a lot of controversy about the police, and in turn led to riots along Crenshaw Boulevard. Past tense was very much written with that fresh in the writers' minds. I mean, everybody will have felt that. It was like a massive earthquake culture. Avery was acutely aware. A really responsible Black Lives Matter activist. It felt like a great responsibility for us. And it was really the first episode that I felt that we were tackling something deeply political. It's quite interesting that we're having this, it's Juneteenth today. We happen to have this Zoom, and you brought up this wonderful question.
Just remember there was something to the effect of around that time, something was proposed to the effect of a sanctuary district, and the actual episode of Star Trek helped shape and prevent that from happening. I'm looking at the quote now, and it's from you.
Oh no! What did I say?
Okay. I don't expect you to remember everything. Enclosed areas, which they wish to put all homeless people. They ended up not doing it because the episode aired around that time, and the council saw that. And given the COVID-19 crisis we're going through and the obvious racial issues that are going on in the country, especially with the time frame the episode was set in. It was set in 2024, the far distant future of 2024. We're going to go through an economic crisis in the future. I mean, it's important to look at these sorts of things. Like they say, life imitates art. People of color are disproportionately affected by these economic losses and things like that.
Of course.
It's an important topic to discuss.
You've made a really important point, and what's really cool about your point is that these things intersect. So homelessness, poverty, gay rights, race, they all intersect. All of these people who are discriminated against in various ways. And I was saying on Tuesday that I think protest is incredibly important, but positive reinforcement is also important. When people react, well, help, they deserve praise. You know, when people help, they deserve praise. This wonderful photograph in England from a counter demonstration between the right, I guess they would term themselves in England, and the Black Lives Matter protest. What it was, this photograph of a black man holding a white man on his shoulder and taking him out of a fight. And the white man was one of the right-wing demonstrators who was just about to get beaten. So it's really touching. And that's a kind of positive reinforcement when the media put that in the news and say unification is possible. Not only possible, but is the best way to start. This not the other way around, not just divide camps. Try and find ways to get together. Try and find ways to be. And that's why I love talking to you guys about these difficult situations, difficult subjects, because I think we get together a bit. I perhaps represent some form of other. A lot of people here don't. And that's kind of a really interesting conversation to be had. How are you doing with this COVID crisis?
I'm faring okay. I live in New Jersey. We had a large, as you are probably aware, a large burst of the virus very early on.
Second highest cases in the country.
I personally am okay. I live with my family, and my mother is a nurse. She started preparing for this well before it became, once we had more than like 2 or 3 cases in the country, she's like, I'm gonna start stocking up on things, preparing for this.
Wow, she knew, she's smart. She got it right away.
So we're okay.
Are you the cat lover, or was your mom the cat lover? Because you have a decapitated cat behind you.
Oh, it's because I moved the camera I'm a cat lover. We have 2 cats in our house. They were in here a few minutes ago, but they left. I would show you one of them.
We have a lot. You're in the good company. A lot. There are a huge amount of people on this in this club who love cats too.
I used to work a job in the school system before this. I got this to help keep track. I'm very much ADHD,
Right.
emphatic, easily distracted. So sometimes I lose track of my calendar. So I got this to have a physical reminder. And then
yes, really smart move. And so, tell us a bit about your job.
My goal is I want to go into more research. I want to focus on helping people, and especially after doing my internship, I want to focus on human emotions and rehabilitation in particular. It's been kind of hard acquiring a career, though. There's not a lot in the area.
Yeah.
Since I wasn't established with a career already, it's hard to relocate just to move and go into a career. But
there are quite a few people in your same profession, although perhaps more on the clinical side, not necessarily research side. I'm sure you can interact with. I'm sure you'd be able to. They'll find you. You should find each other in case there's anything interesting. Because there's another student. You have just left a student. There's one who's just about to graduate, I think. You should really all connect.
Happy to do something like that,
That would be really cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just to connect with other people.
Thank you, David, and thank you for sharing your thoughts about past tense, for giving me an excuse to ramble on about race.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, we are going to go to AJ, who is not only a Star Trek fan, she's also a mom and I believe a veteran.
I am.
Oh, goodness, you've got it all going on. It's a real pleasure to meet you, AJ.
You too. Hi, how's it going?
Very good, thanks. I'm really enjoying these. Kind of neat meeting lots of different people and hearing their take on various stuff.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you?
I am in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay. Did you see the movie with Tom Hanks? Apparently,
I have yet to see the movie. I was going to see the movie, and then things started to shut down. Somebody asked. I was in the Marines.
Wow, fantastic.
Reading the chat.
And how was that? How was that?
It's a thing. I joined my stepdad was in the Marines, and I joined kind of wanting to follow his footsteps. A lot of the politics.
Things are pretty hot in 2004.
Yeah, and a lot of the politics that people are just now starting to see have kind of been boiling under the surface in a lot of areas prior to now. They're just now getting more attention. And then I was also married to somebody who was in the military. He's in the Navy still, and so I left the Marines, but I was still, military affiliated. And they say you join the Army, but you become a Marine. It's one of those things. Some of it you look back on fondly. Some of it was, miserable at the time. It's one of those things where if I could do it again, I would have done it again.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that experience, but there are a lot of things, a lot of layers to it that people don't necessarily notice and see, and there's still, there's still a boys club. There's still some racism. It's not, I don't want to say it's not as bad as it was, but I mean, it's still definitely there.
It's like endemically there, you think?
For people, for kids in the military, there's a lot of times where you meet somebody you're serving with, and it's the first time they've met someone who is not like them. It's the first time they've been around a person of color. So first time a lot of them been around a woman of color. So there's a lot of that learning that has to take place of, hey, this person's really just like me. They just look different than me.
Yeah.
And we're seeing now how people are starting, some people are still fighting really hard with racism, but there's also a lot of, hey, you guys aren't that different from me going on. And people.
That's a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a really cool thing. And for those of us in the military, we kind of learn it a little bit faster because of the situations that we're in. I mean, it still does happen. And some of us, some of us don't. And it really just depends on who.
I find that quite a positive story, even though you're saying it still happens, but because it's not systemic, it's not rife with racism. It's a very complicated project because you're in the business of enemy construction. You're trying to turn another human being into someone you hate, because for good reason, because you've got possibly to put an end to their life, if in a you versus them situation. And I don't see how you avoid that, especially against Arabs or Muslims, without being racist, without verging into racism against Arabs. You know, I just don't see how you avoid it. I mean, every war against another nationality has always ended up being race-driven.
You know, speaking of that, I mean, there, you know, in Trek, and not to take away from things that are progressive of Trek, there is some racism that goes unnoticed and kind of people don't think about it, and it goes unnoticed. And then, you know, lately we've seen more races in the Trek fandom pop up on Facebook and pop up on the message boards and pop up in groups. And you see people go, how are there races in Trek? And I'm like, well, for starters, the original Klingons are white guys in blackface.
Yeah, that's true.
Civil rights movement.
That's true. That's true.
You know, it's the idea that Gene Roddenberry had and the vision that Gene Roddenberry had sometimes has to be separated from the execution of the vision, because the execution is made by people in that current moment, and made with limitations on the creators and made with limitations by the networks. So even though his vision may have been, you know, your race doesn't matter, your gender doesn't matter, your sexuality doesn't matter, the reality of how it had to be executed just to get it out there, race did matter, gender did matter. We didn't get a genuine LGBTQ character until the last couple of years. We had allegories, and because they're painted as aliens, we can look at these allegories. We don't have to really understand them because they're alien. And that's, you know, it's not a fault of the vision itself. It's just a fault of the time that we're in. Discovery is doing things that TNG could have never gotten away with because of when it takes place. To not look at those problems and to kind of ignore them for our nostalgia or for our respect of Gene takes away from it a little bit.
That's a really, really interesting point you make. And I think as someone who has literally put her life on the line for all people in America, black or white, we should take your word seriously. And are you relatively happy? I don't mean that in a personal way, but, you know, just is post-military, you've kind of processing that. And obviously we're going through a really, really rough time right now, double whammy for you, and finding a kind of safe ledge, you know, on the precipice.
Because I was military, I started my degree a long time ago, and this has kind of given me some time. I am in the last 2.5 weeks of my last class of my criminal justice administration and human services degree.
Wow.
You know, getting to step away and getting to focus on something that I've been working on for such a long time. And, you know, the first week of July is it. That's the end. And you know, I'm so excited for that. So when we start to open, when we genuinely start to open everything back up, you know, I'm going into it having accomplished something that I've been trying to accomplish for
That's fantastic, AJ. You're brilliant.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you came on the list and that you came to talk to me. I think everyone's a little bit richer having heard what you have to say. Thank you very much for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you for, you know, letting everybody share their stories with you. It's been really interesting getting to meet all kinds of different people from all over the world.
Isn't it so? Isn't it fascinating?
It is. It's you know, you got a ton of smart people in this group.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, AJ.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna go to Ash.
Hi, Ash.
Hi.
So, where are you?
I'm in Dunedin.
What a beautiful part of the world, you lucky person. That is fantastic. And you've all opened up. You've got it all right. You've got just like 2 new cases in the last few days.
Yeah, we're almost normal. We're back in the office and stuff like that, and everybody's stopped social distancing and stuff like that. We're still a bit nervous that it might sort of start up again.
Hopefully it won't, because you've been so brilliant, your people.
Jacinda did good.
Absolutely. And what do you do? What are you up to? What sort of office?
I work for a big government corporation called ACC, which does accidental injury insurance.
Right.
I do the uploading people's files into the system so they can get to the case owners. Did
you feel that your life changed in any way because of the pause? Sort
of, but most of the time, like, I don't know, I'm a bit of an introvert really, and most of the time when we weren't on lockdown, I spend all my free time up in my room writing stuff anyway, so.
What do you write? What sort of thing do you write?
Fantasy, sci-fi.
brilliant. You're in the right room for that. Tell us a bit about what is your area of interest?
Oh, well, mostly I like telling stories. I mean, I think that's the main thing. I think if you want to interest people, you got to at least like entertaining people.
Sure. Do you parodize Star Trek, for example?
I have done quite a bit of Star Trek fan fiction. That was like.
Where can people find it? Is it? Am I asking too obvious a question?
Okay. On fanfiction.net since about probably 2008. Like most of my stuff is from then because I haven't been keeping up with it very well. On fanfiction.net, I write under the pseudonym of Little Tanuki.
Oh, wonderful. Well, there you go, guys. If you want to have a browse through some interesting stuff. And do you do lots of different genres or just mainly Star Trek?
Mainly Star Trek, but also dabbled in sort of Greek mythology stuff as well.
Wow, fascinating. That's really cool. Have you heard Stephen Fry on Greek mythology?
Well, I have sort of, yeah, he's very knowledgeable. It's like, I don't know, I mean, for a while, that's sort of my Aspie obsession. Is the Greek mythology stuff. So
it's pretty wonderful. Wonderful.
I have somebody saying Mythos. I have Mythos. I totally intend to read it one day. And yeah, I'm writing a comic book about the Trojan War. So.
Oh my goodness, you are busy. How do you fit it all in?
I don't.
That's fantastic.
I have my main novel that I'm trying to get edited. All the other stuff I try to get to because I know from reading fanfic that I hate it when people don't finish a story.
Yeah.
And I have too much stuff unfinished and it's embarrassing. Yeah. So
you must finish. You must finish.
Must finish. Picky about.
Well, if you feel like it, you should just submit it to someone here. Get to know them first, obviously, and then the help's right here. There'll be a ton of people who will be probably very good at it and very knowledgeable about the subjects. And do you live alone? Do you live with family? Do you? What's your setup?
I'm in a bit of a weird place at the moment because I got kicked out of my last place. Then I'm in this sort of I was staying with friends of friends temporarily.
Yeah.
But now they've gone and moved to Tidy Mouth, and they've kind of left me and all of their stuff here.
Oh, okay.
And I'm moving into another place alone next week.
Right. And you're going to get a place to yourself, or you're going to be sharing with someone?
No, it's on my own.
That's probably kind of how you like it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And what's your favorite thing in the world to eat?
Takoyaki.
Describe that to us.
Okay, so you take little bits of octopus, and it's a Japanese dish. Takoyaki means like fried octopus.
Okay.
So you take little bits of octopus, and they put them in like these little these dumplings.
Yeah.
And they serve them like maybe 6 at a time or something like that. Heat them up, and it's just, oh my God, it's so scrummy.
You've got a lot of people already saying they're loving takoyaki. You hit a good chord there.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, what would be your dream job? What would you like to do what would you daydream about?
Right.
To write. You'd like to be a professional writer, make money at it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. And who are your favorite writers? Who are your role models?
Terry Pratchett, Diana Wynne Jones, Shakespeare, Agatha Christie.
My goodness.
H.G. Wells.
Wow. Fantastic. H.G. Wells.
Yeah, I tell you, the best review I ever got on my novel, like somebody said it reminded them of Terry Pratchett and Hayao Miyazaki.
That's just wonderful. That's really cool. Is there anything else you'd like to ask me?
Can you see?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I can. Wow. So you draw as well?
Oh yeah, I bet.
That's not a bit. That's a lot of drawing. That's really excellent. Wow. You keep yourself really busy. Well, it's a real pleasure to meet you. I think you're really fabulous, and I hope we get lots more of you. Share your link, make some friends, get an editor. You've got a whole bunch of people here who would probably love to correspond with you. If you do that, you'll be kicking off all kinds of good things. Cool.
All right, thank you, Ash. We're gonna go to Kathy Wong.
Hurrah!
You know her? Yes.
I do know Kathy Wong.
It's actually Wang, but okay.
So how terrible could that be? Well, I haven't seen you for, 20 years? 15 years?
A while back, he gave me a 10-minute lecture on my name and how I was saying it wrong. So
he's telling you you're wrong.
He says I'm wrong.
How have you been?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. One of the things I'm really enjoying is this. I'm really enjoying meeting up with everybody a couple of times a week and finding out all about these interesting lives, these fascinating lives, and how we're all wonderful, different shapes and sizes. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but we have talked many times in the past. What do you think about race? What is racism to you? How does it refract through your prism?
I just felt a little out of place because I'm not totally Chinese and I'm not totally Filipino. I'm half and half.
Right.
And they never said anything, but you just sort of felt you didn't fit in with either group. With the Chinese side, I had learned how to comprehend the language, which is lately is watching a lot of these TV series, which helps me comprehend, and I'm trying to learn to speak it. But one thing that Chinese people do a lot of is they speak about you in front of you because they think you don't understand them. So you can hear that you're really not really part of that, what do you want to call it, pure?
Yeah, that cultural group.
You're not exactly all Chinese and you're not exactly all Filipinos. I did get more support on the Filipino side, though.
Yeah. I mean, we have quite a few lovely Chinese people in the club. I'm sure you've noticed.
Yeah.
So your sense of what if I understand you right, you've never quite felt properly included in either sphere of your heritage.
Personally, it's more the Chinese side because of my parents divorced when I was 4, and my mom, we stayed a lot with my mom and my grandparents on her side. So if I had to identify with one or the other, I identify more with the Chinese side than I do the Filipino side, while my sisters and brother identify with the Filipino side.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that part of it is because of growing up and being so young and being the oldest.
Yeah.
I tend to feel that I had to side with my mother.
Right.
I wasn't very accepting of my dad.
Did you have to take on a few of your mother's responsibilities, given the fact that you were but the oldest of the kids? Like, she do a bit of the caregiving.
All of it, because I'm the oldest. I was responsible for my younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And also, because I was the oldest, if one of them got in trouble and got punished, I did too.
Oh my goodness, that's pretty dark.
Well, I don't think so, because at the time I didn't like it, but now when you look back, I realized that it kept me out of trouble. We moved in my junior year of high school, so I went back to my old school to watch my friends graduate, and when I decided half the class was pregnant, and this is an all-girls school too. I realized how lucky I was.
Yeah. Okay, I understand from that. I completely understand your perspective.
No, I was lucky because my grandparents on my mom's side, when my mother started going through a divorce, immigrated over here, and then they opened a restaurant. So we were the typical Chinese family that had to work in a restaurant. Yeah. And with me being oldest, I got to work a lot for no pay kind of thing. But, it was fun.
Is there a record of this? Have you spoken? Is there someone who's speaking the lives of these people?
No, unfortunately, when you're a kid, you don't, like, when I was a kid, my mom tried to get us to do the Chinese lesson, but you got mad and you didn't want to do it because that was extra school. Yeah. You didn't really write anything down, which is sad. So we don't have much of anything. This is like your autograph line, except you can talk to people longer than you used to.
I know. Isn't that great?
Yeah, it is. But it is. You sort of remind me, Dan and I did this autograph line with John Rhys Davies, and it was sort of funny because he talked to every single person, so he reminded us of you. And it's genuine curiosity. It's not just a hi, bye, and how are you, what you do, and not even listen. Whenever I did an autograph line, you always seemed really interested in listening to what the other people had to say.
I can't deny it. I am. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, you're wasting your time, if you're going to meet somebody, not to get a glint, a tiny speck of information from them, because my life gets richer in every time I hear someone else speak sincerely, and that's just the fact. So I learn so much from interacting with people, and also I'm quite a hermit. When I'm really private. So this sort of thing is just like meat and drink to me. This is the kind of learning that I would normally get from a group of actors, and it's just fantastic. I mean, we could all make a movie after this. It would be perfect.
To tell you the truth, Gail really brought me out because first in your fan club when I became your, what do you want to call it, unrecognized photographer. I don't know.
Yes, the official photographer.
And then Gail had me write things, and it just sort of brought me out and more social than I used to be. I used to be that wallflower that would hide behind everybody so you don't notice me.
That's really great. Well, Gail is wonderful for doing that, and she's a really good friend and a good friend of mine too. For those of you who don't know, Gail and Kathy go back pretty much to the very early conventions. Gail was doing a psychology thesis, and she'll probably tell you herself at some point. She'd already done work on Michael Jackson fandom, but she was one of the pioneers of fan psychology.
Right.
So she came along to conventions just for work, really. We hooked up, we met each other, and she started to use my fandom fan base as a sort of pseudo model for some of her work, because she was looking at lots of other celebrities too, and comparing the fan worlds. And Kathy and Gail came to pretty much everything together, which was terrific.
Gail's here.
I know, I saw her. Nice to see you, Gail.
Good to see you.
Talking about you, Gail.
I know, I'm listening. You better watch it.
And you're about to have your next book published, aren't you, Gail?
I'm actually getting ready to start a sabbatical to write my next book.
That's where you are.
It's a textbook on media psychology. So.
And have you got tenure yet?
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm just about to make full professor. I'm an associate professor with tenure right now.
Congratulations, that's terrific.
Thank you. Yeah, the letter should come any day. I'm going to watch in the mail for it. So, because during COVID, everything comes in the mail, right?
Everything.
Nothing's in person. But
you can go on Amazon. You could actually get her first book, which is a very interesting book to read.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's called The Psychology of Celebrity, and there's an interview with Sid in it. So.
Yeah, definitely check it out, guys. It's worth having a look at. Well, it's lovely to catch you for a second or two, Gail. It's really, really nice. But you were evoked, so you had to come in and say hi. Couldn't just leave you there.
Anytime. I'm always here listening, though.
Great, that's great.
So.
Well, Kathy, I would love to just say I'm very delighted that you came. You finally switched on your camera and came in to say hi.
So have I.
Listen, please take really good care of yourself, my dear. Good luck. And see you in the next couple of days.
Say hi to your wife, too.
I will do. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, we're going to bring on 3 people.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Siddig.
Hoi, Siddig.
Hi, Ratnadeep.
Love to see you guys.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you so much.
Can you just all introduce yourselves since you're in 2 separate squares?
My name is Deep. So I'm originally from the Netherlands, Ratna as well. We live in Switzerland now. And Suleika is my sister. Danny's my brother-in-law. We haven't been able to see each other for the last couple of months due to the situation. They are in the Netherlands. And this is actually our way to hang out together. And
well, that's fantastic.
So
it's really wonderful that you get to do that this way.
It's great. So we get to meet all these wonderful people. We get to hear from you, and so it's really a highlight of our week.
That's wonderful. And will you say your sister's name again, because I missed it?
My name is Suleika.
Beautiful name.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm here with my husband Danny.
Hi.
Nice to see you, Danny.
Well, and the reason why we actually asked Mel to use the open mic is, well, as you can see, we're a mixed race couple.
I love that.
Deep and I have grown up in the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. So Rotterdam it's a pretty big city. It's one of the biggest cities in the Netherlands. And we're persons of Indian origin, as we're called. So that means our ancestors went to Suriname, South America, and that was after the abolishment of slavery. So indentured leadership was invented, and that meant that based on contracts, people were brought in to do the work that slaves used to do before. The Suriname was a Dutch colony, so our ancestors were transported on Dutch ships, and that was actually this year. It's 147 years ago that the first ship left from the shore shores of India to Suriname.
Right.
And that means our ancestors stepped on those ships about 145 years ago. And from there, our parents came in the mid-60s to the Netherlands. And we were both born and raised in the Netherlands.
Oh, wow, fascinating.
And like on like the topic of indentureship, so a lot of the planters in colonies and overseas territories, they were looking for alternatives to slavery after it got abolished, so for cheap labor. And the way that a lot of history books portray it is that these people were recruited to work on plantations, but in reality, over a period of 80 years, more than 2.5 million people were sent from the subcontinent to I think more than 14 different territories to just work, and a lot of them were escaping famine. They just they couldn't read or write. They just got a contract and said, well, we will repatriate you, or you go to this lovely place. And then they just got put on these ships that used to be used for transportation of other people. And then they got put in these barracks, and then they were just left to fend for their own devices.
Absolutely. I completely understand. In fact, your great-great-great-grandfather and grandmother were people trafficked.
Yes.
You were, by modern standards, you were literally taken somewhere and lied to about what was happening when you get there, and then you were kept basically as a slave with a contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's a terrible thing, and I'm really sorry.
You don't have to be.
You don't have to be sorry.
Well, there's an element of me that does have sorry, and it's kind of interesting because my family was guilty of unindentured slavery. My own family. So I do apologize.
Okay.
What's your experience now in Switzerland?
Well, before Shalaika goes, because I don't want to hoard your time, but like all the things that you've spoken about, so like what I mentioned about masking, like it really translates to our world, and also I believe in English it's called microaggressions, right? But when we live in Europe, a lot of times we get to hear, but where are you really from? And at first, we just thought it was a question because we look different, we have different names, but along the years, I started to get frustrated with that question because if you get it asked 2 to 3 times a week, you feel like you're justifying yourself. And at one point I realized, like, those 145 years that Shalaika talked about, if someone asks you, no, but where are you really from? And you tell them, well, I'm from Suriname, but you look South Asian, then basically you're trying to put me in a box. You're telling me to deny like the story of my family.
Absolutely.
Right? And then I sometimes ask the question back, so where are you really from? And then people get offended. Like, why are you really asking that? And that is something that it does pervade. And the thing is, you don't want to live through that lens. You called it a prism as well, right? Not a prison, a prism. And if you start to define yourself by that lens, you're just that person. And also one of the downsides of racism as well is that you're lumped together with a group of people to whom you might not have anything in common with, which is also something that you have mentioned quite a few times. So that is actually the thing that keeps me sometimes busy.
I understand. I sympathize and empathize. Yes, I would. If I may, I would. Can I give you some unsolicited advice?
Of course.
It's I would try your hardest. That you call them quite rightly microaggressions, and because they're not, they're subtle and they're insidious and they are pervasive. 3 pretty tricky words if you're not speaking English very often. But I think it's possible to get past that particular slight, that particular element, and do exactly what you do and say, well, where is your ancestry? Do it sincerely. But I don't think a lot of people will always be intending to be aggressive to you with that particular. I'm asked it often, obviously.
Yeah.
But I find that I'm asked it too by people of color, and and especially Indian people, because a lot of Indian people think I'm Indian, and they just want to make friends. It's like, oh my goodness, you must be Indian, and I'm like, nope. And they never get
same with us, and our ancestors were or might have been at some point, but
absolutely,
we have a very
you must
different
get that all the time. You're Surinamese, and that's a completely, it's South America, a completely different part of the hemisphere. But if you can, if there's a kind of sense of being a pillar, and you have to take some punches, and that punch I would suggest you try and roll with, because it will build on you in a way that you'll never get it'll never get better, and it's not so difficult that you deserve to suffer. So if you can let it not live in your head rent free, that would be really a healthier way to survive. That's what I've done, and I just basically go, oh cool, you want to know what you're interested in, who I am? That's interesting, and I'll tell you, and I want to know who you are, and I may be doing a disservice to people of color around the world by saying that that might be cowardly, for example. We've just got to get together, and if it means cutting a few corners of the softer edges, then I'm prepared to do that. And then I draw the line when it comes to tough stuff, you know. But you're welcome. Ignore the advice if you like. But if I was your dad,
yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for bringing that to his attention, because even though I'm 10 years older than him, he sometimes doesn't listen to me. I don't get it. Talking about parentified behavior, so I do recognize what you're saying from another perspective, because we have two boys. Their ages 6 and 9.
Yeah.
So we know we're bringing them up in a pretty difficult world. That's one of the reasons why we decided to stay in Rotterdam and not move outside to actual smaller country landscape where Danny's actually from.
Yeah.
Because we want to make them somehow resilient for whatever is waiting for them. And if we bringing them up in a city like Rotterdam, it does make you resilient, or maybe a little harsh in some ways. Also to be inventive and like read, go along with the flow, and see how we can give that answer back without being offensive.
Yeah.
And make your point. It's what we have a saying for that in Dutch. It's be kind in the way you portray it, but be harsh in the message that you are giving the other.
Absolutely. And there will be lines they have to draw, but certainly in this fragile period of their life where they're so easily offended, and they take everything so seriously, and everything is, the most terrible thing that ever happened, or the most wonderful thing that ever happened. It's like really bipolar child's existence.
Yeah.
Children particularly need to assume that strangers are kind. But trust but verify, as the phrase goes. It's really I love meeting you guys. I love meeting guys that surprise me. Normal part of the Deep Space Nine world, and it's great. The wonderful thing that's really fun about this whole thing is that we're picking up people from all over the world, and so we're getting all these different countercultural people who you wouldn't normally put in the same room, and they're in the same room, and that's great fun. How was it when you first got together with your husband?
Well, actually, for us, the both of us, there was no issue. So then you didn't even you saw me.
Yeah,
but
I still do actually.
Yeah.
You're married.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's so much that is similar in our religion, in the way that we deal with our families, how important families are.
It's so easy to get through. It just seems incredibly hard. It on a societal level, but on an individual level, you two are the reason. You're the trailblazers. God bless you for that. Whatever God you love.
but also, so to add what Schleicher is so has told, and the story of us growing up. So she's 10 years older than I am, or older than I am, and she also faced a lot more prejudice, I think, growing up, and tried to shield me from that as well. So for instance, with getting school advice that wouldn't have allowed her to study, and she did. But also, I think that for us as well, so being from that immigrant or living within that immigrant sphere, as you might know, it's very hard to find your place.
Yeah, it is.
I think that we both decided at one point, like, that the only people that matter are the people that care about you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what color they are. And I think that's like is really an example of that. And the funny thing is that Ratna and I, we've been together also for a lot of years, and we're really in love with each other. But then when people in the Netherlands see us, because she also has the same origin, they think, oh yeah, they probably got together because because they're from the same from the same
color spectrum.
yeah,
maybe that.
So, but our kids,
so
we have a girl, Alicia, and she's 3 months old, and we've lived in different countries, and he was born in Finland, and Alicia was born here in Switzerland. And we also talk about what sense of identity do we give them, and we always just tell them, you can to Ron, you can say wherever you're from, you can say that you're from Finland, from the Netherlands, from Suriname, doesn't matter, just be you, and just be a good Starfleet officer.
Well, I think you've got the right idea, you all. I mean, I think that the fact that, it's really about just getting closer to people from wherever they come. They've all got something interesting, a spark. As long as we can capture that spark, you're in a great part of the world, I mean, it's the European Union is trying its hardest to get on its little legs and trying its hardest to figure all this stuff out. The more of you guys, people like you, Deep, and your partner here, are before other people and make them smile, the more you'll break down these huge walls. And it's done by people, not by governments. It's done by not just movements. It's done by just individuals.
Thank you as well for talking about this, and for also bringing up the topic in such a way, in a really nice way, because it's actually really hard for us to talk about these type of things, but we all wanted to share it.
But celebrity cleans color off you. And if people know you from the TV, you have no color. I think you're all doing great. You all seem really healthy. You all seem really happy.
Thank you for giving us so much time.
You're very welcome.
So much.
Thanks a lot.
It's been great fun. Lovely meeting you all. Have a fantastic weekend.